This happened in October of 2018, just outside a small town called Briar Hollow, Tennessee. I was 38 at the time, driving alone through the Cumberland Plateau after a rough few months. My name's Marcus Hale. I used to work hotel security for a regional chain. The kind of job where you see more than you want to and learn not to flinch. I'd left Knoxville that afternoon with no real plan, except to camp for a few days and clear my head. My sister had just stopped speaking to me. My marriage had ended the year before. I needed quiet, trees, distance. By the time I reached Briar Hollow, it was close to midnight. The road was empty, the gas stations closed, the mountains just dark shapes pressing against the sky. I'd planned to drive straight to the state park campground, but exhaustion started crawling up my spine. My eyes kept blurring at the edges. That's when I saw the sign. Cedar Ridge Motor Lodge vacancy. The letters buzzed faintly. One of the eyes flickered. The place sat back from the highway behind a row of dead hedges. 12 rooms in a U-shape, pale yellow paint, peeling at the corners. But the parking lot lights were on, and that counted for something. I pulled in, inside the office. A man in his early 50s looked up from behind the counter. His name was Dennis Carter. He told me that before I even asked. Thick glasses, hair combed straight back, clean flannel shirt tucked into jeans. His handshake was dry and firm. Don't get many travelers this late, he said. His voice was steady, friendly, but not warm. He told me the place had been in his wife's family since the 70s. She'd passed a few years back. Now he ran it alone. He gave me room 9. Quiet corner, he said. You'll sleep fine. The key was attached to a thick wooden tag with the number burned into it. There were only 3 other cars in the lot. An old pickup near room 3, a silver sedan at 6, one empty space with fresh oil stains. Everything felt still, not peaceful, just paused. Room 9 smelled faintly of bleach when I stepped inside, the kind that tries to cover something else. The decor hadn't changed since the early 1980s. Brown carpet, wood-paneled walls, a floral bedspread in faded orange and green, a humming mini fridge in the corner. The air conditioner rattled when I turned it on, then settled into a low growl. I locked the door, slid the deadbolt, checked the windows. Habit. The bathroom light flickered twice before staying on. The mirror had a crack running diagonally through the corner. For a second, I thought I saw movement behind me in the reflection, but when I turned, the room was empty. I told myself I was tired. I unpacked my backpack, set my shaving kit on the sink, and left my handgun under the pillow, just in case. Old habits die hard. There was a diner open 24 hours about a mile back. Dennis had mentioned it when I asked about food. I drove there, ordered a burger and black coffee, and brought it back. When I returned, nothing looked disturbed. I entered the small round table by the window. The parking lot light outside flickered every few minutes, throwing long shadows across the wall. At one point, I could have sworn someone walked past my window. A shape, tall, slow. When I checked, there was no one there. I locked the door again, checked the bolt twice. That's when I noticed the first small thing. My shaving kit wasn't on the sink anymore. It was on the floor beside the bed. I stood there for a while, staring at it. I remembered placing it by the faucet. I'm particular about that kind of thing, but I was exhausted. Maybe I'd carried it back absent-mindedly. Maybe I'd kicked it. I picked it up and put it back. The room felt colder than before, not dramatically, just enough that I rubbed my arms. Around 1:30 a.m., someone knocked on my door. 3 slow taps, not loud, not urgent. I froze. Another 3 taps. I didn't answer right away. I moved quietly to the side of the window and lifted the curtain just enough to see. A woman stood outside. She looked young, early 20s, long dark hair hanging straight down. No jacket, even though the night had turned cold. She wasn't looking at the door. She was staring at the ground. I didn't recognize her from the parking lot earlier. What do you need? I asked through the door. Her head tilted slightly. Can I come in? She said. Her voice was flat. Almost bored. No, a pause. I'm cold. There's an office. I don't like the office. That made my stomach tighten. I can't help you, I said. She didn't argue, didn't plead. She just turned slowly and walked toward the center of the lot. The parking lot light flickered again, and she was gone. Not walking away, just gone. I opened the door and stepped out. The air felt heavier, thicker somehow. I could hear my own breathing. No footsteps, no car doors, nothing. Dennis's office light was on. I could see him inside through the blinds. I called him from my phone. Did you just see someone outside my room? I asked. He paused. I'm at my desk, he said. Haven't seen anyone pass the window. I just talked to her. Another pause. Longer this time. I'll check the cameras, he said. His tone changed slightly, more serious. I went back inside. Locked the door. Checked the bolt again. The room felt smaller now. The air smelled different. Less bleach. More damp, like wet soil. I lay down, but sleep didn't come easy. When it finally did, it didn't last. I woke up because the mattress shifted behind me, just slightly, like someone sitting down carefully. At first, I thought it was a muscle spasm, my body adjusting. Then I felt the dip grow deeper. Slow pressure against my lower back. The temperature dropped sharply. Cold seeped through my shirt, into my skin. I could not move. Not because I was paralyzed, because something in me knew not to. The blanket lifted. A hand touched my side. Cold doesn't even describe it. It wasn't just temperature. It felt empty, like it wasn't fully there. My breath came in short bursts. And then, right by my ear, you didn't have to say no. The voice wasn't angry. It sounded disappointed. My hand slid under the pillow. I grabbed the gun. I rolled and fired twice into the mattress. The sound inside that small room was deafening. My ears rang instantly. The smell of gunpowder filled the air. I scrambled to my feet and turned on the light. The bed was empty. 2 smoking holes in the sheets. The door was still locked. Deadbolt in place. My heart pounded so hard, I thought I might black out. A heavy knock hit the door. Marcus, Dennis's voice. I opened it. He stood there holding a shotgun. Eyes wide but steady. What happened? I told him. He didn't laugh, didn't accuse me of dreaming. He just nodded slowly. Come with me, he said. Inside the office, he pulled up the security footage. We watched my arrival. Me leaving for food. Me coming back. Then around 1:32 a.m. Something drifted across the screen. A small light, not bright, not flashy, just a soft white blur moving along the walkway toward my room. There was no woman, just the light. At 3:11 a.m. It came back. This time it paused at my door, and then it faded, right through it. 3 minutes later, the curtains in my room flashed twice from the gunshots. Dennis leaned back slowly. No one's ever reported anything in that room, he said. But you've seen that before, I replied. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he rewound the footage further back. Months earlier. Different nights, same light. Room 9, always room 9. Your wife, I said quietly. He swallowed. She died in that room, he said. 10 years ago. He hadn't mentioned that earlier. She locked the door from the inside. I didn't ask how she died. He didn't offer. The office felt colder than my room had. I packed immediately. Dennis didn't try to stop me. As I loaded my bag into the car, I noticed something I hadn't before. There were no oil stains in the empty parking space. Just faint, dark marks. 2 parallel lines. Like something had been dragged. I left before sunrise. But here's the part I haven't told anyone. When I got to the campground later that morning, I unpacked my gear. My shaving kit wasn't in my bag. I searched the car twice. It was gone. Inside it was a small photo, one I hadn't shown Dennis. A picture of my ex-wife, taken the night before she died. She'd locked herself in our bedroom. I'd been pounding on the door, telling her to open it, telling her She didn't have to say no. Sometimes, when I wake up in the middle of the night now, the mattress dips slightly behind me, just a little, and I don't turn around anymore. It was September 2019 when we drove into Harbor's Reach, a quiet lake town in northern Idaho. My stepbrother Nate had a rowing tournament that weekend, and MOM insisted we turn it into a family reset. Her words, not mine. She'd married Carl that spring, and this was our first trip as something resembling a unit. The town sat between pine-covered hills and a flat stretch of grey water called Alder Lake. Smoke from distant wildfires hung in the air, not thick enough to block the sun, but enough to tint everything the color of old bruises. When we stepped out of Carl's SUV, the air smelled faintly sweet and burnt, like someone had left toast in too long. The hotel was older than it looked in the photos. The sign out front flickered even though it was still daylight. Inside, the lobby smelled like lemon cleaner layered over something damp and sour underneath. The carpet had that flattened, overused look, like it had absorbed decades of shoes and secrets. Our room was on the 3rd floor. When you walked in, the bathroom sat directly ahead, splitting the room in half. My bed was on the left. Nate's was on the right. MOM and Carl had their own room across the hall. The bathroom created this narrow passage between us, like two separate spaces pretending to be one. I noticed the temperature first. It was colder in the room than in the hallway, not dramatically, just enough that my skin prickled. Carl left almost immediately to meet Nate's coach downstairs. MOM followed to help with paperwork. That left Nate in the shower and me at the small desk by the window, pretending to scroll through my phone. That's when the knocking started. 3 taps. Gentle. I figured Carl had forgotten something. He did that a lot. I opened the door. The hallway stretched both directions under weak yellow lights. No one there. No doors closing. No footsteps fading away. Just the hum of the overhead lights and the distant whir of an ice machine somewhere down the hall. I stood there longer than I should have, waiting for someone to step out of an alcove or laugh and say they had the wrong room. Nothing happened. When Nate came out of the shower, I asked if he'd knocked. He wiped steam from his glasses and frowned. "I thought that was you," he said. We both laughed it off. It felt easier that way. That night, after dinner at a diner by the lake, we came back exhausted. Nate fell asleep fast. I didn't. The scratching started around midnight, soft at first. A faint drag, like a fingernail tracing the inside of the bathroom wall. I held my breath and listened. It stopped, then started again, a little higher this time. Slow, patient. "Nate," I whispered. He shifted. "It's just pipes." But his voice sounded tight. The sound moved, not across the wall, up it. I pulled the blanket up to my chin and told myself it was mice. Old building, thin walls. Normal things make normal sounds. Sometime after that, I fell asleep. I dreamed I was standing in the hallway outside our room. The carpet felt damp under my feet. The lights flickered, and every door was slightly open. I knew I shouldn't look inside any of them, but I did. Each room was empty except for a circle of pillows arranged carefully on the bed. In the center of every circle stood something tall and narrow, balanced upright. I couldn't tell what it was. It shifted when I tried to focus in the dream. I realized one of those rooms was ours. I woke up with my heart hammering so hard it hurt. Morning light came through the curtains in thin, pale lines. Nate was sitting up in bed, staring at the door. "Did you hear that?" he asked. "Hear what?" Footsteps, back and forth, all night. I hadn't heard footsteps. Or maybe I had and folded it into the dream. I couldn't tell anymore. Across the hall, MOM said she slept fine. Cole joked that the old place probably had ghosts and that we should ask for a discount if we saw one. He laughed. No one else did. The next day at the lake felt almost normal. The air was brighter. Nate was focused on his race. I tried to forget the room, but when we came back that evening, something was wrong before we even opened the door. The air in the hallway felt heavier, warmer. Carl unlocked the room and pushed it open. For a few seconds, my brain refused to understand what I was seeing. Every pillow in the room had been moved. Mine, Nate's, even the small decorative one from the chair by the window. They were arranged in a perfect circle on my bed. In the center stood Nate's long body pillow, balanced upright, not leaning, not propped against the headboard, standing. The mattress dipped under its weight, but it didn't fall. No one spoke. Carl walked inside first. He looked around the room slowly, checking the closet, the bathroom, under the beds. Nothing. Housekeeping messing around, he muttered, but his face had gone pale. They wouldn't do this. M.O.M. said quietly. I felt sick. I stepped closer to the bed. The circle wasn't random. The pillows were evenly spaced, like someone had taken time to measure. The body pillow in the center tilted slightly toward me. For a second, I had the strangest feeling that it wasn't balancing, that it was being held. Nate grabbed my arm. Don't touch it. His fingers were cold. Carl broke the circle apart, tossing pillows back where they belonged. The body pillow fell flat this time, like it had never been able to stand on its own. That night, none of us wanted to say it out loud, but we were listening. Around 2 in the morning, the footsteps started. Slow, measured, they passed our door, continued down the hall, then came back, over and over. I counted under my breath. 12 steps one way, 12 steps back. Then they stopped directly outside our room. Silence. I stared at the ceiling. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The doorknob rattled once. Not violently, just a small, testing movement. Nate got out of bed and pressed his eye to the peephole. He didn't say anything for a long time. What? I whispered. There's someone out there, he said finally. My stomach dropped. Who? He didn't answer. After a few seconds, he stepped back from the door. His face looked drained. There's no one, he said. That's not what you just said. I know. We didn't sleep after that. The next morning, we asked the woman at the front desk if anyone had access to our room. She smiled too quickly. Renovations stir things up sometimes, she said. Guests say they hear things. Like what? M.O.M. asked. The woman hesitated. Movement, scratching, items misplaced, pillows arranged in circles. I asked. Her smile faded. You're not the first to mention that. She said it like she'd meant to keep it to herself. We checked out early as we drove away from Harbour's Reach. The lake looked calm. The sky was clear. Smoke had thinned overnight. Everything seemed normal. But halfway home, Nate turned to me in the back seat. Why did you move them? He asked quietly. Move what? The pillows. I didn't. He stared at me for a long time. You sleepwalk sometimes, he said. You used to. When we were kids. I didn't remember that. Later, when we unpacked at home, I found something at the bottom of my duffel bag. One of the hotel's small decorative pillows. I don't remember packing it. I don't remember touching it. It still smells faintly like that room. Sometimes, late at night, I wake up and count 12 steps one way, 12 steps back, and every now and then, I wonder if the knocking didn't start at the hotel. Maybe it started with me. It was August 2019. The heat in southern Spain clung to everything, even after sunset. Mara and I had booked 3 nights at an old countryside estate outside a small town called Valdeoro. The listing described it as a restored 18th century finca with authentic character. That should have been a warning. We weren't a couple in the romantic sense. Not anymore. We used to be. By that summer, we were something else. 2 people who couldn't quite let go, but couldn't stand each other for too long either. We called it closure. It was really just unfinished business. The estate sat a few kilometers of the main road, surrounded by olive trees and dry fields that hummed with insects. No neighboring houses, no streetlights, just a long gravel path that led to a whitewashed building with cracked shutters and heavy wooden doors. When we arrived, the sky was turning that deep purple that only lasts a few minutes. Our rental car crunched over the gravel louder than it should have. I remember glancing at Mara. "Did you hear that?" she asked. "It's gravel," I said. "That's what it does." But even as I said it, I had the strange feeling that the sound had echoed too long, as if it traveled farther than it should have. The main courtyard was open to the sky. Stone floor, iron chairs and tables, a long rectangular pool that reflected the last bit of daylight. The water looked darker than it should have. Not dirty, just dense. The owner wasn't there to greet us. Instead, a middle-aged man from town handed us a key and said the owner preferred privacy. He left before we could ask anything else. Inside, the air smelled faintly damp, not moldy, just old, like stone that had absorbed decades of breath. Our room was of the courtyard, right beside the small dining area. The furniture was heavy, solid wood, the kind you couldn't easily move without effort. That night, we went into town for dinner. Valley Oro was quiet. A handful of locals, one bar, a small church with chipped paint. We talked about safe things, work, mutual friends. Not us when we got back. The estate felt different, quieter, not the peaceful kind of quiet. The thick kind, the kind that presses against your ears. We went to bed around midnight, at 2:14 am. I woke up. I didn't know why at first. My eyes opened and I just lay there, staring at the ceiling fan. It wasn't moving. The air felt still, heavy. Then I heard it. Metal scraping across stone, slow, deliberate. Not a quick accidental shift. Not wind. This was someone dragging one of those iron chairs across the courtyard, inch by inch. My body went rigid. Mara was asleep beside me. Facing the wall, the scraping continued. Long, controlled, almost careful. Then it stopped. A single dull knock, like the chair leg settling. I checked my phone. 2:16 am. I slid out of bed and walked to the door. The stone floor was cool under my feet when I opened it. The courtyard was empty. One wall light near the pool flickered weakly. The water barely moved. The chairs and tables were exactly where we'd left them. No one. No footsteps fading into the distance. No doors closing. I stepped outside and looked around the pillars. The air felt colder than it had any right to be in August. Nothing. When I came back in, Mara stirred. "Where'd you go?" She mumbled. Thought I heard something. She didn't ask what. The next morning, everything felt stupidly normal. Sunlight flooded the courtyard. Birds hopped near the pool. The iron chairs looked harmless in daylight. I told Mara about the noise. "You probably dreamed it," she said, pouring coffee. "You've been stressed," I almost argued. Almost. But there was a small, quiet part of me that wondered if she was right. The second night was worse. We spent the day hiking through dry hills outside town. By evening, we were exhausted, sunburned, quiet. We didn't talk much over dinner. Back at the finca, the heat lingered inside the stone walls. We left the windows slightly open. I fell asleep quickly. I woke up because something felt wrong. No sound this time, just pressure, like the air had thickened. I rolled onto my back and stared toward the foot of the bed. That's when I saw it. The mattress dipped near the corner, not slightly, not a trick of shadow, a clear indentation, as if someone was sitting there. The sheet was pulled tight over the shape. The dip was round, heavy. I didn't breathe. Mara was facing me now, asleep, or pretending, very slowly. I shifted my weight. The indentation deepened, as if whatever was there adjusted. My hands started to shake. My throat felt dry and tight. "Mara," I whispered. No response. I leaned forward slightly. The mattress rose, smooth, gradual. The dip disappeared like someone had stood up. The air near my legs turned cold. Not cool, cold. I grabbed Mara's arm. She jerked awake. "What?" There was someone on the bed. She stared at me, then past me. Her face changed, but only slightly. "You're not sleeping," she said. "You haven't been sleeping properly for months." That wasn't true. I think I lay awake the rest of the night. I could hear every tiny sound. The building settling, Distant insects. Mara's breathing at some point. I must have drifted off. I woke again just before dawn. Standing at the doorway between our room and the courtyard was Mara, barefoot. Still, she wasn't looking at me. She was looking outside. Mara, she didn't answer. I sat up. She stepped forward into the courtyard. I got up and followed her. The sky was pale grey. The light was thin. She stood near the pool, staring at the water. "What are you doing?" I asked. She turned slowly. "I heard you," she said. "Heard me." Dragging the chair, my stomach tightened. I didn't leave the room. She held my gaze for a few seconds too long. "Don't lie to me, Daniel. I'm not." Her face was unreadable. Then she walked back inside. I didn't remember leaving the bed, but the next morning, one of the iron chairs was slightly out of place, just enough that I noticed. The third night, we didn't talk much at all. There was something hanging between us. Accusations we weren't saying out loud. We went to bed early. I woke to footsteps, soft, bare feet on stone, right outside the door, slow pacing. Back and forth, back and forth. Mara's side of the bed was empty. I sat up too fast. My head spun. The footsteps stopped. I opened the door. The courtyard was dark except for the flickering wall light. And there she was, standing near one of the pillars. But something was wrong. She was facing away from me. Her shoulders were slightly hunched, her head tilted at an angle that looked uncomfortable. Mara, she didn't move. I stepped closer. The air smelled different. Metallic, faint, but sharp. Mara. She turned. It was her. But her expression didn't match her eyes. They looked distant, focused on something behind me. "You shouldn't have done that," she said softly. "Done what?" She glanced toward the dining area. One of the iron chairs lay on its side. The stone beneath it was scratched, deep, like it had been dragged over and over. "I didn't touch it," I said. She walked past me, back into the room when I followed her inside. The bed was disturbed. Sheets twisted, mattress slightly shifted, as if someone had been sitting there again, or two people. I looked at Mara. She was already under the covers, facing the wall. In the morning, she didn't remember going outside. She said she'd slept straight through. When we packed to leave, I noticed something on my forearm, a faint red line, thin like a shallow scratch. I don't remember getting it. At the front gate, as we were loading the car, Mara paused. "Did you ever wake up in the night back home?" she asked quietly, "and feel like someone was sitting at the edge of the bed?" I didn't answer right away, because I had, months before this trip, back when we were still together. I just never told her. We drove away from the finca, gravel crunching beneath the tires in the rearview mirror. I thought I saw someone standing in the courtyard, not waving, just watching. But when I blinked, the courtyard was empty. Mara hasn't answered my calls in 3 weeks. Last night, I woke up at 2:14 a.m. There was no scraping sound, just the unmistakable feeling of the mattress dipping near my feet, slowly, deliberately. And this time, I didn't turn on the light. Back in October of 2019, my sister Mara and I rented a small guest house outside Black Ridge, Oregon. We needed somewhere quiet while she recovered from a minor surgery, and the listing promised total privacy and peaceful wooded views. The photos showed a neat little cottage behind the main house. 1 room, concrete slab foundation, no basement, no attic, just a square box with a bed, a bathroom, and a tiny kitchenette. It looked harmless. The first night felt normal enough. The air smelled faintly of pine and something older underneath it. Not mold exactly, just stale, like the place had been closed up too long. The only light outside came from a wick porch bulb that hummed when it flickered on. Mara went to bed early. I stayed up reading. Around 11:30, I heard something low and rough brush against the outside wall. Not a knock, more like something dragging along the siding. I froze and waited. Nothing. Probably a raccoon, I thought. Or a branch in the wind. Except there wasn't any wind. When I finally turned off the lamp and lay down, the room felt tighter somehow, smaller than it had before. I told myself I was just being dramatic. A few minutes later, it came. A growl, deep, long, not loud, but heavy, like it had weight. It seemed to come from just beyond the window beside the bed. Mara pushed herself up on her elbows. You heard that, right? Yeah, I whispered. The porch light flickered twice, then went steady. I pulled the curtain back slowly. The yard was empty. The trees were still. No movement. No shadows shifting between trunks. I stepped outside with my phone's flashlight. The beam shook in my hand more than I expected. I walked the perimeter of the cottage. The concrete foundation was solid. No crawl space. No gaps underneath. Nothing big enough for even a cat to squeeze through. When I came back in, Mara was sitting upright. Jaw tight, animal. She asked. Probably, I said. We left it at that. The second night, the air felt different. Colder. The thermostat said 72, but my breath felt thin in my lungs. The room carried a faint metallic smell I hadn't noticed before, like pennies rubbed between damp fingers. We didn't turn on the TV. No music. Just quiet. Too quiet. Mara was flipping through a magazine. I was scrolling on my phone. The porch light outside flickered again, though no one had touched the switch. Then the growl came back. Only this time, it wasn't outside. It came from under the bed. There was no mistaking it. The sound vibrated through the mattress frame, through my ribs. It was low and sustained, like something testing its voice. Mara scrambled backward until her shoulders hit the wall. Her hands were flat against it, like she expected it to give way. Get up, she whispered. Not loud, not panicked, just certain. We slid off the bed slowly. The growl didn't stop. It shifted, almost like a breath moving from one side to the other beneath us. I dropped to my knees and yanked the comforter aside. Mara grabbed the edge of the mattress and lifted. Nothing. Bare wooden slats. Clean floor. No vent. No opening. Just smooth concrete beneath. The growl stopped the moment the mattress tilted. The silence afterward felt worse. We didn't sleep. We kept the overhead light on all night. Every time one of us blinked too long, the other nudged awake. In the morning, I walked outside again, checked every inch of the exterior. No access point. No damage. The slab was seamless. Solid. I told the property owner, Mrs. Langford. She lived in the main house. Mid-60s. Calm smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Any wildlife around here that could sound like that? I asked. She tilted her head slightly. Coyotes sometimes, but they don't get under buildings, and not on concrete. She paused, studying my face. You two sleeping all right? Not really. New places can do that, she said softly. Make things feel different. That night, we packed our bags before dark. Decided we'd leave first thing in the morning, around AM. I woke up. I don't remember falling asleep. The room was dark. We had left the overhead light on. I was sure of it. The air felt thick and damp. That metallic smell was stronger. I could taste it at the back of my throat. Mara was sitting up in bed, staring at the foot of the mattress. What? I whispered. She didn't answer. The growl started again. Not under the bed this time. Inside the room. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It moved slowly along the walls, like a vibration traveling through the concrete itself. Mara's fingers dug into my arm. Her nails left crescents in my skin. Do you see it? She asked. See what? Her head turned toward me, very slowly. You were talking to it, she said. The words didn't make sense. I heard you, she continued. Last night, when I woke up, you were kneeling on the floor, whispering. That didn't happen. She shook her head. Not arguing, just disagreeing. The growl softened into something else. Not a growl exactly, more like breath. Slow, measured. I looked down. There was a thin line on the concrete floor beside the bed. A hairline crack I hadn't noticed before. It ran from the wall to the center of the room. It widened, just slightly, a faint dark seam splitting the slab. Cold air slipped up through it, brushing my bare feet. The breath came from there. Mara let go of my arm. "You said it could come up if we made space," she whispered. My chest felt tight. My memory felt slippery, like trying to grab something underwater. I never said that, but I wasn't sure. The crack didn't break open. Nothing climbed out. The floor stayed mostly intact by morning. The seam was gone, smooth concrete. No sign of damage. We left before sunrise. Mrs. Langford waved from her porch. She looked pleased, almost relieved. Mara hasn't talked about that night since. If I bring it up, she changes the subject. Sometimes I wake up and my knees ache, like I've been kneeling on something hard for hours. Sometimes I catch myself whispering just as I'm drifting off. And every once in a while, when the house is completely silent, I hear that low, patient sound again, not outside, not under the bed, somewhere beneath the floor, waiting. This happened in 2016, in a small town outside Ashford, Ohio. The hotel sat just off Route 42, half hidden behind a gas station and a dead Dairy Queen. Officially, it was called the Briarwood Inn, but older locals still called it the Cowhound House, like they didn't want the new name to stick. It had been built in the 1920s. You could feel that the second you stepped inside. I was 19. I dropped out of community college after one semester and needed money, so I took a kitchen job. Nights mostly. Fryers, burgers, frozen appetizers, the kind of food people order when they don't want to leave their room. My older cousin, Daniel, worked mornings running the breakfast buffet. He'd been there longer than me. He got me the job. Place is old. He told me my first day, but easy money. Just don't hang around the basement longer than you have to. He said it like a joke. I laughed. The lobby had new carpet and fake plants, but nothing else matched. The ceilings were too high. The chandeliers were original and just dim enough to make everyone look tired. There always smelled faintly sweet, like old wood and something floral that never fully faded. The kitchen was in the back, past a set of swinging doors. And beyond that, double doors opened into two huge ballrooms. They were almost never used. During the week, they sat empty, chairs stacked along the walls, tables folded and leaning upright like gravestones. The lights inside were weak, yellow. Dust hung in the air like a thin fog. There was a narrow service hallway that ran beside them. That hallway led to the dumpster and the grease barrel outside. The hallway was always colder than the rest of the building, even in July, about 3 months into working there. The hotel lost its liquor license. Some paperwork issue. The bar shut down overnight. That meant my shifts got quieter to quiet. For 6 hours at a time, it was just me, the hum of refrigerators, and the ticking of the heat lamps. Maybe 3 orders a night, sometimes none. Silence in a kitchen is unnatural. Kitchens are supposed to be loud. Clattering pans, people yelling, music instead. I could hear everything. The building settling, pipes knocking, footsteps overhead. Except sometimes the footsteps weren't overhead. Sometimes they sounded closer. The basement is where you clocked in. You had to take an old elevator down, the kind with a metal gate you slide shut by hand. It shook every time it moved. The light inside flickered like it was trying to decide whether to stay on. The basement hadn't been renovated. Stone walls, exposed pipes sweating in the dark, low ceilings that forced taller guys to duck slightly without realizing it. There were storage rooms down there, cleaning supplies, extra linens, and then there were other doors, unmarked doors. Some of them were locked, some weren't. At the far end of the corridor were 2 old elevator shafts boarded up with plywood, chains wrapped around the doors, a padlock that looked too small for the job. No one explained what was behind them. The air down there smelled different, damp, metallic, like coins and wet concrete. The first time I felt it, I was clocking out, that heavy, pressing feeling. like someone standing too close behind you. I swiped my card. The machine beeped, and I swear I heard a second beep a half second later. I turned around. Nothing, just the hallway stretching behind me. I started taking the elevator up faster after that. The ballroom hallway bothered me more. Some nights the doors into the ballroom were closed. Other nights one would sit slightly open, just enough to see inside. I made a mistake once. I stopped and looked. The chairs were stacked neatly along the far wall. The back exit sign glowed red. I could see the opposite wall clearly, but between me and that wall there was a patch of darkness, not a shadow. Not a corner, just a section of space that looked thicker, like the air was darker there. I stepped sideways to test it. The darkness didn't move with me. My chest tightened. I blinked hard. It was still there, and then I realized something worse. I couldn't see the floor inside that section. Not clearly, like something was blocking it. I shut the door without meaning to. My hand just moved. After that, I stopped looking inside. The swinging kitchen door incident started a week later. There used to be a bartender named Elise. Before the license got pulled, she'd come into the kitchen constantly for bottled beer. Push door. Walk in. Quick nod. Grab what she needed. The movement became familiar. One night, while I was scraping the grill, I saw the door swing open. Someone stepped through. I didn't look up fully at first, just enough to register a shape moving toward the freezer in the back. Give me a second, I said automatically, wiping my hands. No answer. I glanced up. The freezer door wasn't open. No one stood there. The kitchen was empty. The swinging door was still slowly moving on its hinge. Back and forth, I stood there listening. The building hummed softly. I walked to the hallway. Nothing. I checked. The bar area. Empty that night. I convinced myself I imagined it. But it happened again and again. Each time, the movement was natural. A full person. Height. Shoulders. A shift in weight as they walked. Each time gone. No sound of the outer door opening. No footsteps leaving. I stopped wearing both earbuds after that. Around the same time, something else started happening. Smells. Not random ones, specific ones. My father left when I was 11. He worked construction. When he'd come home, he smelled like sawdust and old cologne. Cheap stuff. Sharp. I hadn't thought about him in years. But in that kitchen, sometimes the smell would roll in suddenly. Strong. Fresh. Like someone had just walked past me. It would hit so hard my throat tightened. I'd look around. The room would be empty. The scent would fade slowly, like it was walking away. And the strangest part, it felt comforting, like someone was checking on me. The cold in the ballroom hallway never felt comforting. That felt watchful. Hungry. One morning, I mentioned the basement to Daniel. We were sitting in the staff break room. He looked tired. You ever feel like someone's down there with you? I asked casually. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stared at the vending machine across from us. Then he said, "You ever smell Grandpa's garage in the kitchen?" I felt my stomach drop. What? He described it perfectly. The oil, the wood, the stale tobacco. He leaned closer. And sometimes in the ballroom hall, it feels like something standing just inside the door, like it doesn't want you in there. We didn't laugh about it. We just sat there. The air felt tight between us. The climax came on a Tuesday night in October. It was raining. Hard. The kind that makes the building creak. I was alone again. Around 10:40 p.m. I heard the swinging door open. I didn't look this time. I said, "We're closed." Footsteps moved across the kitchen floor. Slow, deliberate. My hands froze over the sink. The footsteps stopped behind me. I could feel the space shift, like the air thickened, and then I smelled it. Not my dad, not wood. Something damp, rotten, like wet fabric left in a sealed room. My heart started pounding so loud, it drowned out everything else. I turned around. No one. but the freezer door at the back of the kitchen was open. I hadn't opened it. Cold air poured out in a steady stream, and inside, I thought I saw someone standing in the reflection of the metal shelves. Not in the freezer, behind me. I spun around. The kitchen was empty. When I looked back at the freezer reflection, the figure was closer. Paul had tilted slightly to one side. The door slammed, shut on its own. The lights flickered once, then steadied. I don't remember walking out of the kitchen. I just remember standing in the ballroom hallway. The door was open. The darkness inside wasn't just a patch anymore. It reached almost to the doorway, and for a second I saw movement inside it, like shapes shifting slowly against each other. Breathing, I felt something brush past my shoulder. Warm, familiar, the smell of sawdust wrapped around me, and the cold from the ballroom pulled forward at the same time, like two currents meeting. My ears rang, everything went black. I woke up sitting on the basement floor. The clock in machine was beeping. Over and over and over. My hand was pressed against the keypad, like I'd been trying to punch in. But it was 3:12 a.m. I was supposed to have left hours ago. My shift log showed I'd clocked out at 11:03 p.m. Security footage later showed me leaving the building calmly at that time, walking straight through the lobby, getting into my car, driving away. But I remember the hallway. I remember the freezer. I remember the dark pressing toward me. Daniel quit a week later. He said he couldn't sleep anymore. Said he kept hearing something walking around his apartment at night. I stayed another month. The smell stopped. The door never moved again. The ballroom door stayed shut. But sometimes, when I'd clock in, I'd hear two beeps. Not one, two. Last I heard, the Briarwood Inn closed down in 2019. Structural issues. Water damage in the basement. They demolished most of it. But a local posted photos online before it came down. In one picture, taken in the kitchen, you can see the freezer door open, and in the reflection of the shelves there's someone standing behind the photographer, head tilted, watching. I've looked at that photo 100 times. The shape looks tall, broad shoulders, familiar. But what bothers me most is that I can't tell if it's facing the camera or if it's facing something just out of frame. I started working at the Red Maple Lodge in the fall of 2022, just outside a small town called Briar's End, Ohio. The place sat off a quiet stretch of highway, surrounded by cornfields and a closed-down roller rink that still had faded neon lights hanging over the doors. It wasn't a bad motel. 38 rooms, 2 floors, faded burgundy carpet, lamps that hummed softly if you listened too long. We weren't fancy, but we were clean. Travelers passing through, families visiting the small liberal arts college up the road, long-haul truckers who didn't ask for much. I worked the front desk with only one other person, Gloria, late 60s, smoked too much, knew every regular by name. She'd been there since before I was born. The owner, Ravi Patel, bought the place in 2018. Soft-spoken guy, always polite, always smiling. Kept a tiny brass statue of Lakshmi behind the counter and rubbed it before counting the register. I didn't believe in ghosts. Still don't. Not really, but I think about room 312 more than I should. It started small. In early October, we partnered with the college again to house students who needed short-term isolation for a flu outbreak. Nothing like the pandemic, just a precaution. We blocked off the entire second floor. A student named Marissa checked in late one evening. She looked tired, pale under the lobby lights. I handed her the key to 312 and a bag with bottled water and snacks. 10 minutes later, she came back down. Her face had gone grey. "There's something wrong with that room," she said. "I assume plumbing. Mold. Dead animal in the wall." "What kind of wrong?" I asked. She hesitated. "It smells like meat, but old, like it's been sitting out, rotting." That's what she meant. We cleaned those rooms thoroughly. I'd helped strip and sanitize them myself. The disinfectant usually stuck your nose. I moved her to 318 without argument. Then I grabbed the master key and went upstairs. The hallway was quiet. Too quiet. Even the vending machine hum sounded distant when I opened 312. I expected a wave of stink. Nothing. No rot. No chemical cleaner. Just air. Still air. It didn't move when I stepped in. Didn't shift. The curtains were drawn halfway. Streetlight leaked in weak and yellow. The bed was made tight. Bathroom door open. Everything looked normal, but the room felt sealed, like it had been closed off for years instead of days. I sprayed disinfectant anyway. The mist hung longer than it should have before falling. I told myself that was just bad ventilation. A few months later, the flu housing ended. Things went back to normal. That's when the noises started. It was a Saturday night. We were nearly full. I checked in a middle-aged woman named Diane into 311, the room next to 312, around 3:17 am. The desk phone rang in the back office. It was our overnight clerk, Ben, 22. Nervous kid, always chewing gum. There's a guest upset, he said. His voice sounded tight. She says someone in the next room is hitting the wall. I pulled on my hoodie and walked out to the lobby. Diane stood there hugging herself. I don't want a refund, she said quickly. I just want to move. What's happening? She swallowed. It sounds like someone crying. And then banging, like they're slamming their fist against the wall. Over and over, I glanced at the board. 312 was empty. I knew it was empty. I checked the list twice before going to rest in the staff room. You're sure it's that room? I asked. She nodded. I knocked. I asked if they were okay. The crying stopped when I knocked. That part made my stomach tighten. I moved her to a suite downstairs. She didn't argue. She didn't even ask for compensation. She just wanted distance. The next morning, I asked Gloria about 312. She stopped pouring coffee. Oh, she said softly. That one. I waited. She wiped her hands on a towel and leaned against the counter. In 2019, she said, the man ended his life in there. She didn't give details at first. I had to ask. Shotgun, the housekeeper found him. Gloria had to call the police. Had to stand in the hallway while they brought out the body. There was a smell for days. She said quietly. Metallic. Sweet. The mattress was replaced. The carpet near the bed cut out and ridden after that. She added, people in 311 and 313 started complaining, crying, banging. Was anyone ever actually in there? I asked. No, she stared at me a little too long. I had a pastor come bless it. Things stopped for a while. For a while? She didn't answer. I tried staying in 312 myself a few weeks later. It felt childish, but I needed to prove to myself that nothing was there. I brought my overnight bag, set my phone on the nightstand, left the bathroom light on. The room felt colder than the hallway, not freezing, just a few degrees off. The AC wasn't running. I lay on the bed staring at the ceiling. The popcorn texture looked uneven above me, like someone had tried to patch something around it. I woke up. I didn't know why. The room was darker than before. The bathroom light had turned off. I was sure I'd left it on. My mouth tasted metallic. I lay still, listening. There was a sound, not loud, not clear, just a faint, uneven tapping, like someone drumming fingers against drywall. 3 taps, pause, 3 taps. I sat up. The sound stopped. Silence pressed against my ears. I waited. Nothing. Eventually, I convinced myself it had been pipes, or the ice machine outside. I slept again. When I woke up for real, my alarm was buzzing. My phone was on the floor. I don't remember knocking it off the nightstand. The part that still bothers me happened last winter. My older brother, Caleb, came to visit for a few days. We hadn't spoken much in the past year. Family stuff. Complicated. He asked for a standard king room. We only had 4. 312 was one of them. I don't know why I gave him that room. Maybe I wanted to see if someone else would notice something. Maybe I wanted proof. He stayed 3 nights. Each morning, I asked how he slept. Fine, he said every time. But he looked worse each day. Dark circles, skin pale, hands shaking slightly when he signed the breakfast receipt on his last morning. We went to a diner down the road. He ordered coffee. Black. He never drinks coffee. You okay? I asked. He shrugged. Weird dreams. What kind? He stirred the coffee slowly. Didn't look at me. Same one every night, he said. I'm in that room, but it's not mine. And someone's sitting on the bed. I can't see their face. Just the back of their head. My throat felt tight. What are they doing? They're breathing, he said. Really hard. Like it hurts. He looked up at me then, and they keep asking why I didn't stop them. I didn't know what to say. I hadn't told him about the suicide. He left that afternoon, that night. I checked 312. The room was empty, but the bedspread was wrinkled, like someone had been sitting right in the center. Here's the part I haven't told anyone. A few days after Caleb left, I pulled the old maintenance records from 2019. The man who died in 312. His name was Daniel Mercer. He was 34. The reason he was in Briar's End. He had come to see his younger brother. They'd argued that night. Witnesses said shouting was heard in the parking lot. The brother left around midnight. Daniel checked into 312 alone. I stared at that report for a long time. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Caleb is 34. And that night in the diner, when he said someone asked why he didn't stop them, he didn't look confused. He looked guilty. Last week, a guest in 311 complained again, crying, panting. I went upstairs myself. The hallway lights flickered slightly. Just once, when I reached 312, the door was closed, locked. I pressed my ear against it. Nothing. Then 3 taps, pause, 3 taps from the other side. I stood there longer than I should have, waiting. My reflection in the door's peephole looked distorted, thinner, hollow. For a second, I thought I saw movement behind the door. Not a figure, just a shift in the darkness, like someone stepping back. I unlocked the door. The room was empty, but the air felt disturbed, and the smell faint, sweet, metallic, like something that shouldn't still be there. I locked the door again. When I turned around, the hallway felt longer than before. The lights hummed, and for just a moment, I couldn't remember whether 312 had always been empty that night, or if someone had checked in earlier, someone I'd forgotten. Sometimes I wonder if the room is haunted. Other times, I wonder if something followed us there. Or worse, if it was never Daniel in that room at all, because when I dream now, I'm the one sitting on the edge of the bed, breathing hard, and someone behind me keeps asking, "Why didn't you stop me?" It was October 2018 when Caleb and I drove into Briar Glen, a quiet Pennsylvania town that looked like it had stopped aging sometime in the 1950s. We weren't dating anymore. Not exactly. We were in that strange space after a breakup where you still share hotel rooms and unfinished conversations. The hotel was called the Ashwood House. 3 stories of dark brick and narrow windows. A porch that leaned just slightly forward. Like it was listening. We told ourselves we were there for fun. Caleb and I had both grown up in houses where things happened. His childhood home had priests come through twice. Mine just lived with it. Footsteps, doors, things misplaced and then quietly returned. We didn't scare easily. We didn't embarrass ourselves over pipes knocking. We checked into room 204 just after 4 in the afternoon. The hallway carpet smelled like old rain. Not fresh rain. The kind that sinks into fabric and never really dries. The lighting overhead hummed faintly. 1 bulb flickered every few seconds. Not enough to complain about, but enough to notice. When Caleb unlocked the door and pushed it open, the room felt Occupied, not dramatic, just used. The air was warmer than the hallway. Too warm. The curtains were half drawn, and the light coming through them had that late afternoon yellow tint that makes everything look tired. I stepped inside first. Something brushed the back of my neck. It wasn't a draft. The windows were closed. It felt like fingers sliding down, slow and careful, then gone. I turned sharply. Caleb was still behind me with the luggage. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said too quickly. "Static, or something." He gave me a look, but didn't push it. We set our bags down. The room was simple. A double bed, an old wooden dresser, a narrow bathroom tucked in the corner. The floorboards dipped slightly near the closet, like someone had paced there for years. We had brought some equipment. Not professional ghost hunter stuff, just simple things. A small spirit radio, a brass service bell, 2 motion-activated light-up balls we usually use to test vibrations. We placed one ball on the bathroom counter and the other near the foot of the bed. Nothing happened for a while. We went to dinner, walked around town, took pictures, laughed too loudly in the restaurant like we were proving something to each other. When we came back, the hallway felt quieter, not empty, just listening. Around 9, I went into the bathroom to wash my face. The overhead light buzzed faintly. The mirror was slightly warped, just enough to make my reflection look thinner than it should. I was drying my hands when the ball on the counter lit up, bright blue. It rolled a few inches toward the sink and blinked again. I froze. "Caleb?" I called, trying to sound normal. He stepped into the doorway. "What?" The ball flashed again. He walked in and tapped the counter. "Nothing." He stomped lightly. "Nothing." He picked the ball up and shook it. It stayed dark. "Loose sensor," he said, but he didn't sound convinced. Later that night, after we opened a cheap bottle of wine and turned off most of the lights, it happened again. That's when I smelled it. Perfume, floral, powdery, heavy, the kind older women wear to church. It drifted through the middle of the room, thick and deliberate. Caleb looked up slowly. "Do you smell that?" I nodded. The ball near the bed started flashing, not once, not twice. It blinked over and over, fast and urgent. Then the brass bell rang, soft at first. Then again. We both stared at it. No one touched it. "Okay," Caleb said quietly. "That's weird." He tried to laugh it off, but he kept glancing at the door. By 11:30, he was asleep. Caleb could fall asleep anywhere. It used to annoy me. It still did. I lay there staring at the ceiling. That's when the dragging started. Above us, a slow scrape. Pause. Scrape, like something heavy being pulled across wood. I sat up. "Caleb," I whispered. He groaned. "It's an old building," the dragging continued. Slow, patient. Then footsteps in the hallway. Not rushed, not wandering, measured. They stopped outside our door. I watched the handle. It didn't move. After a minute, the steps continued down the hall. I don't remember falling asleep. I just remember waking up. 12:42 a.m. The room was darker, thicker somehow. The perfume was back. Stronger. The ball near the bed was flashing steadily. I hadn't moved. "Stop," I whispered, though I don't know who I was talking to. The flashing didn't slow. I needed the bathroom, but I didn't want to step on the floor. It felt wrong to put my feet down. When I finally did, the air felt colder near the ground. I walked past the ball. It stayed dark, completely still, in the bathroom. I avoided looking into the mirror. I don't know why. When I came back to bed, Caleb shifted but didn't wake. At 1:37 a.m., the footsteps returned. They paced outside our door again. Back and forth, back and forth. I don't know what made me say it. "If someone's here," I said quietly, "just show us." The ball exploded into light, flashing violently. Caleb jerked awake. "What did you do?" I didn't touch it. The bell rang once. Clear, sharp, then silence. We stayed awake after that. At some point, I must have drifted off because the next thing I remember is Caleb shaking. Not me. The bed. I woke up to him sitting upright, eyes wide. Did you feel that? He whispered. What? The door. Before I could answer, 6 heavy knocks slammed against it. Not polite, not curious, hard, one after another. The door shuddered in its frame. The handle twisted, slowly at first, then violently, metal grinding against metal. Someone was trying the locks. I couldn't breathe. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I grabbed Caleb's arm so hard he winced. Say something, I whispered. He didn't. The handle stopped moving. Silence. Then the bed jerked. Not a tremble, not the building settling. A single brutal pull, like something had grabbed a frame and yanked it once. Caleb slid a few inches toward the foot of the bed. We both stared at each other. No footsteps, no voices, just the faint hum of the hallway like outside. Get dressed, he said. We packed without speaking. My hands kept dropping things. The zipper on my bag wouldn't close when we opened the door. The hallway was empty. No one. The flickering bulb buzzed overhead. We didn't check out. We just left the key on the desk and walked out. Now we're sitting in the car in the parking lot. It's 7:56 a.m. The Ashwood house looks normal in daylight, almost harmless. Caleb is asleep in the passenger seat. I keep replaying the night in my head. There's one part that doesn't sit right. When I got up the first time, around 12:42, I remember the ball flashing before I moved, but when I passed it on the way to the bathroom, it was dark, completely dark. That means it stopped when I stood up, or when I stepped closer, or when I answered something. I keep thinking about the smell. It didn't just drift in. It lingered, like it was coming from somewhere inside the room, or inside us, a few minutes ago. Caleb shifted in his sleep, and under the smell of cold morning air and stale car upholstery, I caught it again. Faint, floral, sweet. Not outside the hotel, inside the car. I haven't told him. I am trying to convince myself it's in my clothes, in my hair. But I showered before we left, and I didn't own perfume like that. Caleb just turned his head toward me in his sleep. His lips moved slightly. I leaned closer. He whispered something. Not my name. A woman's name I've never heard before. Then the car door behind me clicked, not unlocked. Just tested once, slowly.